you almost like a dependent on the seed. You almost like you become dependent on the seed. So it's not like some of our local seed where you can reuse. They're already acclimatized with the biodiversity of our environment. So that over dependence on the seed, and we are not in control. We are not in control of that seed is a big concern. That is my biggest concern. Control and accessibility. And I don't think African food industries, maybe. Hello everyone, welcome to Prestige Castle Farm. My name is Innocent. Today I'll be discussing about GMO. What they are, what are the advantages, and what are the disadvantages of GMO crops, and what is my own input on this discourse. If you are following social media these days, you will see that there's been a whole lot of debate around GMO, and it is very, very important that us as farmers, we are able to put in our own input in this discourse, because we are the farmers, and we are very much involved in the daily activities of farming. So GMO is genetically modified organism. So in other words, these are crops or animals that have been genetically modified. Basically what it means is just a working of the genes are basically getting the best features of that particular plant or animal gene, and in order to meet certain expectations. Some of these expectations could be maybe high crop yield, a plant or seed that is resistant to disease, and what have you. So let's look into the advantages of GMO. One of the advantages of GMO is that, if you look at Africa, there is, our population is growing massively, and of course that is a lot of mouth to feed. So people who proponent of GMO would argue that, in case you're hearing some sound, that is actually my turkey that is making the sound, but that is by the way. So, with Africa growing, the African population growing very, very much, there's a whole lot of mouth to feed. So proponent of GMO would argue that, with the way the population of the world is going, there is need for we to increase food production. And GMO gives us the better opportunity or the better chance or route to, get to feed more mouth, right? Also, there's also the argument that, these GMO seed and plants, that they have more resistance to pest, and so, they're likely to yield better fruit and better yield result for the farmers, and also, feed a whole lot of mouth as well. But these are the major argument, and some people have argued that GMO is here to stay. It's already in our market, so there's nothing we can do about it. That this is the reality. Those are people the proponent of this argument. But there are those who argue to say that GMO itself affects the biodiversity of the plant. As a result of the resistance towards disease, it can also affect the pest. So some of the pests could die as a result of contact, and also it also affects even the indigenous seed. So as a result of cross pollination and all of that, as time goes by, this GMO seed would overtake the indigenous seed. Right, and because therefore farmers would move towards this GMO, and then we can therefore lose this indigenous seed, and therefore affecting our biodiversity. Some also argue that one of the disadvantages of this GMO is the over reliance on this seed. So in other words, this seed are really not produced in Africa. Majority of this seed, these GMOs are actually imported, right? So they're imported into Africa. So Africans or farmers tend to be more dependent on this seed. So if you are a farmer that is planting a GMO seed, you would need to, if you can't easily get those seed from the local market, you need to be dependent on those foreign companies to get the seed. And some also argue that that if there are a lot of countries at the moment that are banning GMO, seed and GMO crops, and as such, it's not really friendly for export. So you could see most of these farmers, they would, plant this thing, and then they are not able to export it to other countries globally, because some countries have closed their doors to GMO, crops. So this therefore brings me to what is my take on this whole discourse, this whole argument and this stuff, I mean the whole argument and the whole stuff around the GMO. First of all, I am a huge proponent of Africa dependence, and on themselves. In other words, Africa being independent of, whether it is, in its food chain. Yes, we understand that there is more mouths to feed, but what if this seed, because of our dependence on this seed, what if these companies, these multinational companies, refused to, give us this seed after when we've been dependent on this seed? That means we're going to starve, because it means that farmers are now depending on this seed that can that can give us good yield, that are resistant towards disease. So it means that these companies can dictate what happens in our food production in the entire country. They can. So if they said, we're not going to sell for you, after we have destroyed our own indigenous seed, then we are at the mercy of, we are likely going to fall into the issues of hunger and famine. And our local industry have not yet been matured enough that, that we can genetically modify our own seed to our own taste and have control. And that is the right word, control and accessibility. That is the big debate. That is the big issue that I personally have with this GMO seed, is that we are dependent, as farmers, we are dependent on the seed. And, if we do not have access to it, it means that someone can deny us access to it, or someone can also meddle into our political, economic, social lives in exchange for this seed. And we do not want, I think Africa is finding to move away from that over dependence in, foreign aid and foreign dependence, foreign things, right? So that is my number one issue with the old GMO stuff. Secondly, our market is not well regulated. So what do I mean? Most farmers will plant, and then when they harvest, they sell to the local consumers, right? So if they get this GMO seed and they're able to plant, they will sell to the local people. But this is not what is done in foreign countries, right? Because of good regulation and good compliance and good monitoring, the consumers, the foreign countries give their citizens the right to choose whether I want a GMO fruit or an organically maybe localized fruit or seed or animal. Because in these foreign countries, in most Western countries, there are bodies to regulate and checkmate these things. But in Africa, that is why when you go to their supermarket, you will see a way clearly labeled to the fruit or to the animal that this is GMO and then this is organic. But in Africa, we do not have that sophisticated oversight, body that can checkmate this thing, and not just checkmate it, but also implement and make sure that But how would they do it? Because the local farmers, our market is very informal. The local farmers produce, and they sell to consumers, local consumers. They don't go to the supermarket and then follow through those procedures of labeling the GMO and the organic or localized fruit or animals. So that is one of the big issues that I think that makes me to really question the consumer's choice to choose whether to go, whether to take and consume a GMO food. And the whole issue of safety of the food is another discourse, because a lot of people would argue that there isn't really issues of safety to GMO in terms of like there are some people have argued, it causes cancer and all of that. But we've gotten international organizations that come in, and some of even within, I think NAFDAC as well was also, I saw NAFDAC as well also making a statement that GMO food are actually safe for consumptions, right? But that is an argument for another day, whether it is truly safe or not. But I think is a matter of choice. It's a matter of, giving the consumers the choice to choose whether to take a GMO food or not. And in Africa, I don't think we have that sophisticated system to checkmate this, because of our sector. The informal sector is muchly broader. We have peasant farmers. They are more than commercial farmers. Another thing again that that made me to question the whole GMO route is that some developed countries and some developing countries, have take a very their stance on GMO is no. The concern that I have for the entire GMO debate is its effect on the biodiversity of one's farm, and also the effect it has on indigenous seed. So what we can see is that when you plant this GMO, right, and they have good resistance towards pests, they tend to do very, very well. And sometimes if you plant them alongside maybe in the area where you also have the local seed of that same plant, over time you find out that they will outperform the local seed. They will outperform even the local market, and still boil down to the first argument of the source of the seed. So it means that when the local seed that is readily available, that in terms of our biosecurity, our biodiversity, have acclimatized itself with our own biodiversity. When we destroy that and we bring in this GMO, it therefore means that and sometimes even these GMO some of them are modified in such a way that you cannot replant. You cannot. So you basically you need to get. You almost like a dependent on the seed. You almost like you become dependent on the seed. So it's not like some of our local seed where you can reuse. They're already acclimatized with the biodiversity of our environment. So that over dependence on the seed, and we are not in control. We are not in control of that seed is a big concern. That is my biggest concern. Control and accessibility. And I don't think African food industries, and maybe the research institute have really done a good work, or done a lot of work in creating our own, GMO, and that is indigenously, Nigerian, for example. So in that way, we know we can control, the accessibility and how we use it. Those are my concern. That is my input. But the reality is that even as I speak, in Nigeria, there are farmers already planting GMO food. Even as I speak, some of the food that you eat, even as you watch this video, might even be a GMO food, but you are not aware, because the farmer may just get the seed from one of these stores or from one of these organizations. And, a lot of our farmers, unfortunately, maybe are not, I don't want to use the word illiterate, but maybe are not really, are usually peasant farmers. Provided it's giving them the result, they would use it. So GMO already is in Nigeria. These GMO seeds are already there. They are already currently, being planted by farmers. We are currently consuming it. The safety of it is something that is open to debate. NAFDAC have come and said the GMOs, food are safe for consumption, and there's no cause for alarm. That is still, like as I said, is still open to debate. But why we are my point is therefore that why we are chasing for food security, making sure that we have, when it comes to, there's a lot of mouth to be fed in Africa. Why we are chasing after that, we need to take into account these other concerns that that people have raised, and to checkmate both argument for and against, and not only protect the environment for today, but also for our generation to come. So this is my input. I hope it makes sense. Please do wait to like and subscribe on our channel if it makes sense, and also on the comment section, please do wait to also give us your view on this. Tell us what you think in this discourse. Do you think GMO is good, should be stayed? Are you for or you are against GMO? So thank you guys. Do well and take care.